So you're thinking about going plant-based? I know it is absolutely rewarding, but there are some surprises that no one warned you about. And here are the top 10 things I wish I knew before I started. And if you watch till the very end, there's going to be two things as a plant-based physician that I wish somebody would have told me when I was educating my patients. Boy, some big lessons there. So, by the way, if you're new here, my name is Dr. Lori Marbus. I'm a board certified family and lifestyle medicine physician who's been on my own plant-based journey, raising a family and everything for the past 13 years. So with that, I've also seen thousands of people who eat a plant-based diet because I am licensed in all 50 states and DC. So I literally have seen a person who eats a plant-based diet in every single state of this country. And let me tell you, after all those conversations, mini labs, tweaking things, I've learned a ton, but I'm going to talk to you about my own journey and some of the lessons that I learned here. So, number one, you do not have to be perfect. So, when you start your plant-based journey, it's easy to feel the pressure to go all in, and that is what I did. And, you really want to think about avoiding all the animal products from day one. But perfection isn't the goal. Remember, progress is. So, every plant-based meal is a positive step, and small gradual changes are more sustainable than overhauling your lifestyle overnight, which literally is what I did. There's a whole story there, but this is what I did. And then I stayed up till 1 a.m. trying to figure out how to feed my family. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad I did it, but boy, I like to make things hard for myself. But remember, you don't beat yourself up for slip-ups. Instead, focus on consistency and learning as you go. And the most important thing is to find a balance that works for you and your lifestyle. And by the way, head over to Amazon, type in Plant-Based 101, Dr. Lori Marbus, and you'll see our new book that will tell you everything that you should know when you're starting a plant-based diet and recipes to boot. So check that out too. The book is really everything that I want my patients to know before starting. But what else did I learn? Number two, plan your meals to avoid hunger. Now, when we planned, changing our diet to a plant-based diet, I had at home an 18-year-old female who was tiny. She's only 5'2", and then two teenage growing boys. They were 13 and 15 at the time, and my husband. So I didn't quite understand the whole hunger and needing to eat more thing like that, because there's so many less calories in your plant foods outside of like nuts and seeds and avocados. I didn't quite appreciate the hunger thing and how much food would be required to be the equivalent calories. So remember, when you're switching to your plant-based diet, it often requires some rethinking how you want to balance the plate, right? So without proper planning, you may find yourself or your teenage boys feeling hungry and unsatisfied, especially if you're not used to eating higher volumes of food to meet your calorie needs. So to avoid this, learn to include a variety of protein sources, especially for those growing boys. You want some healthy fats and complex carbohydrates every meal. So meal prepping can also save you time from relying on processed snacks when hunger strikes. So stock up your pantry with beans, lentils, oats, rice, frozen vegetables. These can make great nutritious meals. And any type of whole grain plus a legume is going to be a great source of protein and more calories, plus those complex carbohydrates, starchy vegetables like potatoes, sweet potatoes, some type of squash. That's a wonderful thing to build your meals around. I will tell you, one of the first things I learned with patients is about this lesson as well is they would immediately go to a plant-based diet, and I just say, go eat plants. I didn't really instruct them carefully as I did when I first was transitioning and helping patients. They'd come back feeling really tired and it's like, man, I just can't do this. I'm hungry all the time. When I talked to them, they were only eating like fruits and vegetables because where did they go where the plants are? It's the produce section. But they forgot about, the legumes and whole grains. So it's really important that you build your plate, I believe, around the legumes and whole grains is probably at minimally a half. And then the other half could be some type of cruciferous vegetables or the lower calorie vegetables or fruits, and that would be fine. Or maybe even make it 2/3 whole grains and legumes with 1/3 of the non-starchy veggies. That might help. Again, it'll depend on your your goals. Is it weight loss? Or if you're a growing teenage boy, you're going to need more of those foods. Lots of things to consider. And by the way, that is all also addressed in the book on Amazon called Plant-Based 101. Number 3 is protein isn't as hard to get as you think, right? So one of the most common questions we get as plant-based eaters is, where do you get your protein? The truth is, meeting your protein needs isn't that challenging, isn't as challenging as people assume. I approximately easily get 65 grams per day. I can upwards of 80 to 85 grams per day without even really trying. So I eat a lot of soy products, at least 2 servings daily. So you can do other things like legumes, like lentils and chickpeas. You can do seitan, quinoa. Nuts and seeds have great protein. Even mushrooms have a significant amount of protein. So even vegetables also, like broccoli and spinach, have protein. But you really want to include a mix of these foods so you can eat a wide variety of nutrients. But how much protein should you be aiming for? My recommendation is 1 gram per kilogram of body weight, which is 2.2 pounds of body weight. But not just your current body weight, but your ideal body weight. So if you're already at a healthy weight and you feel strong and feel good, that's fine. Utilize your current weight. But if you're looking to lose weight, my recommendation would be to look at your BMI of what would be around 22. That's a good starting point, because if you have 100 pounds to lose, you don't want to be eating enough protein to sustain 100 pounds overweight. What you want to shoot for is that BMI of around 22. Sometimes if you're very active, you may need even more protein, so maybe upwards of 1.4 grams per kilogram. So again, these are just some rough starting points, but that's where I would recommend. Number 4 is read labels carefully. Oh my goodness. I was never as a deep, label reader until I went plant-based, because I was really quite astonished at things that they hide, especially now, right? Just because something's labeled vegan or plant-based, it doesn't mean that it's healthy. And so many processed vegan foods like mock meats, your frozen meals and snacks can be loaded with sodium, sugar, and unhealthy fats. Additionally, some products may sneak in animal-derived ingredients like casein, whey, or gelatin. And so it's important to check the ingredients list, and so opt for those whole, minimally processed foods whenever possible, and treat processed vegan options as occasional indulgences rather than staples. I love Rip Esselstyn's food, so definitely check out Plant Strong if you ever need a good source. That is a great one. Excuse me. But man, they can sneak some stuff in. Even if it says plant-based, doesn't mean that it's vegan. Okay. Number 5, do not forget your B12 supplement. This is absolutely crucial. There are 3 supplements that most of my patients end up on, and that's B12, an algae omega-3, and vitamin D. But B12 is what I describe as a non-negotiable for people who eat an exclusive whole food plant-based diet. Even people who eat an omnivorous diet many times will be B12 deficient, just because medications that they're on, they're not absorbing as well. We decrease our absorption when we get older. So remember, B12 comes from bacteria. It doesn't come from animals, and it doesn't come from plants, right? It comes from bacteria that live in water and soil. So if you're not eating animal products, because B12 will reside in the muscle tissue, you're not getting a good source of B12. So what do I recommend? I recommend B12 around 500 to 1,000 micrograms per day. I'm basing that on just my own experience after seeing literally thousands of labs. And I'm telling you guys, after 13 years, I've seen thousands of B12 labs, homocysteine and methylmalonic acid. A couple of things I've seen also that are very beneficial is you want that B12 level to be above 500 on your lab. You don't need to be above 1100, so between 500 and 1100. Why would I say 500? Because 500, even if you're in that normal range, but that low normal range, you may find that you're still having the signs and symptoms of B12 deficiency, but your B12 level is normal. On occasion, you'll also see a homocysteine high. So if it's above 10, that is too high. You want that less than 10, because an elevated homocysteine can increase your risk of stroke. So you want to make sure you're getting enough B12 to lower your homocysteine, because homocysteine and methylmalonic acid both require B12 to be further metabolized. I honestly have never seen an elevated methylmalonic acid. They do recommend it often. I still do check it, but the one that I have seen is the homocysteine. And so if you can get that below 10, now if it still will not drop below 10, your homocysteine, there's some other things. You want to make sure your folate's okay. Could be an issue with your choline. There's a lot of other things that can cause an elevated homocysteine, but that would require additional testing. But that would be my first recommendation, making sure your B12, that you have a reliable source every single day. Okay, there you go. Number 6, eating out can be challenging only at first, right? So sometimes people, they find this such a daunting exercise to go out and eat. Not that I would want you to go out and eat a lot, because again, you're going to eat healthier primarily at home. But depending on where you lived, I went plant-based in a little town called Rifle, Colorado. Yes, the name was Rifle. Imagine what kind of people and what kind of restaurants are available in a little mountain town in Colorado called Rifle. Well, you wouldn't be far off from a wild guess. So when we went first whole food plant-based, it was difficult to go out, period, regardless. And so we ate a lot at home, which we'd already done previously. But even going to the grocery stores was an interesting thing. But when you go out to eat, remember there's a few things that you can order. And I would say it's much easier now than it was 13 years ago, because not all restaurants are going to have a labeled plant-based option. And then sometimes it's not even healthy. So what I would do is recommend is I go and say, check your menu if you can, if they have the menu online, and look to see if they have something that's, plant-based friendly. Look at the sides. Maybe you can order a side of beans or a sweet potato and different things. Most of the time, restaurants are going to be quite accommodating. And honestly, there's probably one restaurant that in my memory that I was unable to order anything. And at that point, I just go somewhere else. And that was IHOP. I don't think IHOP. And that was because we went with some friends that really wanted to go there. So I just drank some water. So, well, maybe you could get some orange juice, but then it's probably loaded with extra sugar. So anyway, there's that. And so I would recommend also might want to look and focus in on cuisines that are typically plant-based friendly. Thai, Indian, Mediterranean, Ethiopian. Oh, Ethiopian is one of my absolute favorites. So that can make dining out easier if you just even shoot towards those type of cultural cuisines that support a plant-based diet. So again, don't worry about asking. Some of the best meals I've had have been in steakhouses, because I was in a place, I was walking, that was all that was available. And I went in and asked, said, hey, I eat a plant-based diet. One of them was a steakhouse in Chicago, and above my head was a placard with a big old knife. I think it was because if they ate a large steak or something, they would get their name on a placard. I don't even know. But it was really funny. Here I am asking as a vegan in a steakhouse. And they brought me this huge, delicious steamed vegetables, this most delicious sweet potato. It was fantastic. And so honestly, they were tickled to even have someone like that. So it was a fun exchange of discussion and conversation. Plus I got to share, the benefits of eating a plant-based diet. So don't worry about asking. And if people make comments, just go, it has nothing to do with you. Who cares what you put on your plate? It shouldn't bother anybody but you. Really, we shouldn't be bothered what people think or say, because it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with what you put on your mouth. If they make a comment to you, it's likely because they're feeling like, man, I should be focusing on eating a healthier diet myself. So I could do a whole video on that. But number 7, trust me, your taste buds will change, okay? When you switch to a plant-based diet, you might feel like a bit of a shock to your taste buds, right? Especially if you're accustomed to eating heavily processed foods. Not that I was accustomed to eating heavily processed foods, but things were different, right? So over time, your palate will adapt, and you'll find yourself enjoying the natural flavors of fruits, veggies, and whole grains, legumes, but spices and herbs and sauces can become your best friends. So really allowing you to create satisfying and flavorful meals without relying on animal products. So the cravings for the sugary and over salty snacks often will diminish as you embrace a whole foods approach. I would say probably within 2 weeks, if I did go out, I almost couldn't eat things because they were so salty. Same meal that I'd had before. Not that I even ate a lot of salt, but I certainly cut down. And I was amazed. But now I'm very sensitive salt palate. And I never really liked sweets a lot. So that was less of an issue. But just be mindful. I promise your taste buds will get better, because you'll feel better too. That's the other thing. Number 8 is it's more affordable than you think. So remember I said I had these teenagers at home and a husband. This was 13 years ago, guys. I watched my budget, or watched my my spending go down $400 a month. And that was 13 years ago. So when you're not buying the expensive animal products, milk and cheese and all the other things and meat, and suddenly you're just like, wow, I'm buying dried beans. I'm buying, whole grains, frozen vegetables. I'm buying more seasonal fruits. These are the things that are very, very beneficial to you. One, because they're going to actually save you money. It's called a pauper's diet for a reason. So don't think just because you heard that it's going to be more expensive, it absolutely doesn't have to be. So if you're going to buy all the extra crazy specialty vegan products like the mock meats and cheeses, that can add up very quickly. But remember, your whole grains, your legumes, veggies, and fruits, they can be very, very budget friendly. Again, plus remember, cooking at home is way more healthy than eating out anyway. So just definitely could put money back in your wallet. I think the next one, number 9, is you'll need to address social situations. This is an ongoing thing, but it doesn't bother me anymore. I used to find it quite comical, and actually still probably do. I got some funny stories for you, but social situations can be super tricky, right? Because when you're transitioning to a plant-based lifestyle, family gatherings, holidays, dining with friends often revolve around traditional meat-heavy meals. So to navigate those scenarios, you really just want to communicate your dietary preferences politely and plan ahead. Maybe you bring a dish, maybe you eat beforehand, maybe you try to go to a restaurant that would be, welcoming of both dietary preferences. And so if you bring a plant-based meal to share, astonish them with the taste of plant-based foods. Sometimes they don't even know that it's fully plant-based until you tell them, or if they don't even tell them unless they ask. I mean, that's a great way to go too. So I remember my son had asked me to create a chili for a chili cook-off. They were raising money. I don't know. I can't remember which organization it was. My kids were all sorts of stuff. And he's like, Mom, your chili was all plant-based because your chili was the first one to go and they kept asking for more. And so that was such a confirmation that we're doing the right thing. So another really funny story, which I think some of you might be able to relate to, and I really want to hit home a really important point, is I was eating lunch with some colleagues. One lady I didn't know very well. I told the waiter what I was looking for, a whole food plant-based meal. She brought me this beautiful meal. And the person who I hardly knew looked at my plate and asked me, oh, what is this? That looks very interesting. What are you eating? It's like, well, I eat a whole food plant-based diet. This is what I'm eating. And she looked at her meal and she looked at my meal and she goes, She goes, so are what you saying is that what I'm eating is not healthy? And she wasn't joking. Like, those vibes, the energy that people are putting out. And I looked at her and I was like, how can I respond to this? I was like, no. I was like, I didn't make a comment about your food, but if you like, I can share some information about what I think about your food and why you might want to eat more plants. And so I utilized my MD degree in that point. But if you don't have an MD degree, or if you're not, feel like you're an expert, it's just like, understand this has nothing to do with you and what's on your plate. A complete stranger who I never said anything about her plate, what is that reflecting? It's reflecting to her, she's making a judgment about me back to her, right? So it's basically her saying in her mind, and she may not be aware of it, is, I'm not eating very healthy. I need to be focusing in on more beautiful whole food plant options, adding more fiber to her diet. It had zero reason what was on my plate. Because I literally made no judgment. I was just going to stick to I don't say anything. They ask. That's the way I do it. But understand, it's all on them. It has nothing to do with you guys. So please, when people make snotty little remarks, you just laugh and go, thanks for your opinion, but this is working for me. I appreciate it. You could also say, my crazy doctor put me on this diet, and just say that crazy doctor on YouTube put me on the diet. Why don't you go check her out? I'll be happy to answer any of their questions. So next, number 10 is it's not all or nothing. Okay. Remember I told you I said I stayed up till 1 a.m. in the morning. It's one of the most liberating lessons I think people learn is that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to commit 100% from the start, right? Do what you can in your current lifestyle. Don't use this. Don't be so overwhelmed that you feel like you have to do everything correctly. You don't. So remember, flexibility is key. So just incorporate a little bit more plant-based meals. Again, those don't even have to be perfect. So number one was like perfect. You don't have to be perfect. It's progress over perfection, and you don't have to do it all at once. That is what I did, but it was hard at first, but then it got easier. Within months, I was feeling like a pro. And we didn't have all the potential, I think it was actually somewhat easier back then because then I didn't have to be confused by all the, the fake vegan stuff and the frozen, the Impossible burgers and the Beyond burgers and the fake cheese. Like they just didn't have it. They just didn't have it. What I had was fruits, veggies, beans, whole grains, and some nuts and seeds. That was it. And that's what we did. Now, the two final bonus things I want to share with you. Number one, these are some important things I've learned from patients. Number one is if you are a physician or you are on medications and you are deciding to, go to a whole food plant-based diet, it's really, really important that you understand if you are on hypertension medications or high blood pressure medications or medications for type 1 or type 2 diabetes, it's going to be very important that you pay attention to these medications and pay attention to your blood pressure and you pay attention to your blood sugars. So the first thing is your blood pressure can improve very, very quickly. I had one patient, but I was already aware and watching for this, that blood pressure, she had been on 3 blood pressure medications for 20 years. She stopped them in literally 30 days. She stopped all 3. And I interviewed her on the podcast. Her name is Ruakism, so definitely check that out. The other one I learned very quickly on, there was no harm done, but I did learn my lesson, was I had a patient who was a type 2 diabetic on a large amount of insulin. She embraced a whole food plant-based diet. We ended up stopping 60 units of insulin in 3 days, in 72 hours. Oh my heavens. That was such an eye-opener to me what a powerful prescription a plant-based diet is. And that is a recurring theme. So that's number one. That's the number one lesson there. And how do you decrease your medications? It would depend. One, like how much medication you're on, what medication you're on. But if you're like on any type of insulin or oral hypoglycemics, these are the ones you got to be very careful of. In any of the blood pressure medications, especially if you're on multiple blood pressure medications and your blood pressures are pretty well controlled. Let's say you're on 3 or 4 and you're pretty well controlled. You may see that you need to drop 1 or 2 of those pretty quickly. Sometimes if you're on like 2, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Again, it just depends on the person. And you don't need to lose a massive amount of weight to have this happen. It's like the things that are changing inside your body so quickly when you start feeding it these amazing foods, they move very, very quickly. That was bonus lesson number 1. Bonus lesson number 2. I have a patient who is eating a whole food plant-based diet, and there's things that happen which I call positive collateral damage. And these are the people who live in the same household as my patient, and they start eating the plant-based diet as well. So one day I'm seeing a patient via telemedicine, and my patient goes, Dr. Marbus, my blood pressure is doing great. She goes, but I have to ask you a question if you don't mind. My husband has not been feeling very well. He's been eating the diet with me. He's lost some weight, but now he's feeling dizzy and very weak. And I was like, I'm like, is he also on blood pressure medications? And she goes, yeah. And you know, it's interesting you ask. We checked it the other day. It was 90/60. Now, mind you, this man is over like 6'2". I was like, could you bring your husband onto the telemedicine, the little thing here, please, quickly? And she's like, yes. I was like, I'm not your doctor, but I'm going to have to tell you, you need to hold your medications and call your doctor, or I can see you now as my patient. We'll get you registered and get you squared away. But that ended up that her husband, who was also eating this plant-based diet, had to stop his medications as well. So 1, you need to watch for yourself, and 2, you need to watch for the others in your household or other people. So when you go out and you start sharing, and you start telling everybody, rattling, the plant-based diet, like, hey, this works great, warn them, be careful about your medications. You may need to decrease it. Now, if someone, and I've had this happen as well, I had a patient who was seeing a doctor about the insulin, and instead of decreasing their insulin, they said, you need to eat more to keep your blood sugars up. That doesn't make sense. Someone is getting healthier. We need to decrease medications. We don't need to keep eating to keep the insulin up or keep the blood sugars up. It boggles my mind why this happens. So anyway, just think critically, think rationally when you start hearing things. If you have questions, come ask me in the chat or wherever. I'm happy to answer those questions because I try to answer as many of the YouTube comments as I can, because I really want people to excel on this diet. And this is number one, why we also made our book. But also, we have a free masterclass. Brittany Giroudi and I put together a masterclass, and you're going to learn top 5 mistakes that people make on a plant-based diet. You're also going to learn our 4-step blueprint on how to master the plant-based diet and do it well. And then you're going to learn the number 1 mistake people make on the plant-based diet, and it has nothing to do with on their plate or recipes. So definitely check out the link below. It's a completely free masterclass. It's 90 minutes, so set aside the appropriate time. And definitely check out the book, guys. It's Plant Based 101. Just go look Plant Based 101 Marbus. It'll pop up in Amazon. And we try to keep the Kindle price as low as we can. The print price is higher than we wanted because there's so many beautiful photos. We got so excited about photos and making it just like, oh, this is such a lovely experience, just the photos in and of themselves. So we learned a lesson. So I do apologize for the cost of the print book, but we're going to be doing some additional books in the future, hopefully more this year, and more addressing towards particular diseases and exactly what to do, written in a similar format of what habits you need to be focusing in on. Very easy to understand, not so much crazy information that you're like, I'm so overwhelmed. I want to make this simple as simple as possible. So that is how we roll, Brittany and I. And so hope you guys found this helpful. It was a lot. And to pull this into, that's 13 years of information, the highlights. So I hope you found this helpful. Thanks again for watching. As always, I am sending joy, love, and healing to you and yours and your family. Bless all of you. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I will be back tomorrow. And hopefully with something that you find helpful. Thanks again for watching. And don't forget to subscribe. I keep forgetting to ask. Please subscribe. Share the video with someone. Share with all your plant-based friends, your Facebook groups. We need to get the message out and how to do this well. Thanks, everyone. Take care.